Fenugreek is this amazing spice that's incredibly effective in managing, reversing, and preventing the development of diabetes type 2. Yeah, there are studies on that. In fact, there are hundreds and hundreds of studies, whether they're cell studies, animal studies, as well as human studies showing the benefits of fenugreek in diabetes type 2 and lots of other conditions. There are dozens of other conditions that it benefits. In fact, it's been used for over 5,000 years in Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, and Arabic medicine. Right across Asia, it's been used largely for diabetes, but lots of other conditions, including men's and women's hormone issue. So if you're over 35, ladies and gentlemen, you'll need to watch my other videos on fenugreek. Its use for beneficial in hormone regulation. Now, it's got over 170 different ingredients in it, which is what makes it so effective, because they all have these kind of multiple ways of acting in working with diabetes type 2, what's called synergistically acting together. One of them is called trigonelline, which is also found, by the way, in green coffee in lower concentrations. Now you're probably thinking, well, herbs aren't that effective. Well, let me tell you, they are. We know they're effective because modern medicine uses lots of herbs. You probably heard of metformin. If you're watching this, you probably know that metformin is the single most used medication for diabetes type 2. Well, it is derived from a herb called goat's rue. Yes, it's a herb, it's a herbal extract, but they've been able to change it a bit, patent it a bit, and make a lot more money on it. Then you've got the statins, which originally come from something called red rice. These statins are used in managing cholesterol. And again, I've got lots of videos on cholesterol and cardiovascular disease and conditions. Watch those videos. Penicillin, which comes from a fungi, which is a drug that has really saved lives. And of course, about 50% of the chemotherapy drugs for cancer have been directly or indirectly derived from herbs. Wow. You're going to say, yes, there is a strong link between modern medicine. What they want to do is they get these herbs and then they paint them, which is what they're doing right now with fenugreek. There's at least a dozen or so trademark fenugreek stamps. Okay, fenugreek in this patented formulation, you can't use it, and they're looking at altering the molecules so that they can make a lot more money on it. The great thing about fenugreek is it's incredibly cheap, and again, lots and lots of studies on the multiple benefits of it. It's about $10 for a kilo, which is probably close to a year's supply. That will be all you will need. So imagine the medical industry isn't really going to like that much. But let's get back to it. So we know it's really beneficial in terms of diabetes type 2 and metabolic syndrome. These are all the conditions linked with high blood pressure, imbalance of the blood lipids, like your triglycerides and so on. And where we know that it starts to work is in the big picture of diabetes, like anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, immune modulating, and the gut microbiome. These are some of the underlying factors that contribute to diabetes type 2. And a lot of people don't know this and don't understand it. But if you can lower the inflammation, lower the oxidation, improve the immune system, improve the gut, you instantly start to improve all of the signs and symptoms and conditions and all those nasty actions that are happening as a result of diabetes, neuropathy, cataract, all of those conditions that are linked with it, they're all starting to decrease just by working at this high level. But what we also know at a lesser level, it starts to work through a whole raft of other smaller actions. One is GLP, something called glucagon-like peptides, and this is a hormone that causes you to change your appetite, lose your appetite a little bit, so you're not as hungry. It causes an alteration in the digestion of sugars. It's got about a half a dozen or a dozen factors. In fact, a lot of medications for weight loss now are based on this GLP-1 hormone. So we know that fenugreek mimics this as well, and as a result, it helps regulate blood sugar and appetite. We also know that fenugreek helps with carbohydrate digestion. That is, it slows the digestion, it decreases the absorption of the sugars, and improves the use of it. So it basically decreases blood glucose. But I'm going to go into that a little bit more detail later on with some studies and some information and a little bit about the doses that they've used in the studies as well. Now, of course, linked in with this is it also improves insulin. it improves the production of insulin, and it improves insulin resistance. So in other words, more insulin, better insulin, and it's able to get out of the blood into the cell. So it improves the insulin resistance. It improves blood lipids, and these are primarily your triglycerides. It lowers cardiovascular risk. It also is pancreatic, liver, kidney protective. So it's protecting all of the major organs to do with diabetes type 2, and where a lot of the damage later on comes about as well. So it decreases diabetic symptoms and complications, and interestingly enough, I thought I'd put this one in too, which I'll talk about again in a moment, but it lowers the GI of food. So if you add it to a bread, and in the studies they added about 10% of the bread mix was fenugreek, it lowered the GI by about, I'll tell you how much later on, but it was significant. Now, as a result of all that, it also has all these other benefits in terms of anti-aging, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular, improvement in its mental health, men's and women's hormones, testosterone and estrogen, as a result, sexual health, and so many other benefits. Fenugreek is extremely safe. In fact, the amounts that they use in the study are between 500 milligrams and 25 grams, which is a lot of any one substance. It's actually a food, it's a legume, it's a spice that's been used for thousands of years. So the safety profile is huge. In animal studies, they use up to 100 milligrams, or the equivalent on those little rats and mice and other animals and so on. There are dozens of human trials, and there are meta-analyses where they bring all of the studies together, the best studies, and they select out of the 25 or whatever number of studies, they select the best 5 or 6 with the best data and information. And overwhelmingly, they show the same results. It improves glycemic control, and it does this through decreasing glucose in the blood, whether it's directly after eating, whether it's after fasting, it doesn't matter. All of the conditions, glucose comes down. It actually decreases amylase and glucosidase, which are the enzymes that break down carbohydrates. So if you have some bread, a slice of bread, which has got a really high GI level, you get a peak in the amount of blood sugar above the curve. Well, what this does is it actually evens that out. It stops the digestion and it slows down the absorption into the gut. So instead of getting that peak on that blood sugar level, it goes and rounds it off a lot more. So it decreases intestinal uptake, which I just said, but it also increases pancreas insulin production. So it's naturally producing more insulin because it's saying, okay, there's not as much insulin, not as much sugar in the blood, we can work with it, it improves the health of the pancreas that I've already highlighted to you, and so it increases insulin production. It increases the GLUT4 uptake, which is the mechanism by which the sugar gets into the cells, into the muscle cells where they need to work. So again, it speeds up the uptake, getting out of the blood and into the muscles. And as a result, the other side aspect of this, which I'll talk about in one of my other videos, is fenugreek has been shown to actually stimulate muscle performance. And so it's actually can be used as literally an athletic enhancer for muscle. So it increases muscle strength, muscle performance in a number of studies out there, but I'll put that up in one of my other studies, one of my other videos. But it shows that link between getting the sugar into the cell and making it available for the muscle. It decreases the oxidation of the hemoglobin, which means effectively when glucose goes into the blood, it will oxidize lots of things, particularly hemoglobin, which is obviously very important and functions around the body. So it decreases the oxidized hemoglobin, it decreases the triglycerides, these are the nasty fats, and LDL, low density lipoproteins. These are, I don't consider these an issue, but what it's indicating if you've got high LDL is that there's some other mechanism of stress, usually oxidation, inflammation in the body. And it also, as I've already highlighted, increases GLP-1, which you probably aren't aware of the name, but it's a mimic. And what it is this mimics GLP-1, which is a hormone, and it causes all of these responses to occur. And this is a good example of it. Ozempic, which everybody is aware of now, is actually activated through the GLP-1 mimic process. So it's mimicking a hormone GLP-1 in the body, Ozempic is an example, and it does lots of these things at the same time. Now you're thinking, okay, so what does this all mean and how does it translate? Well, the best study that I've come across, and this was so good because it was about prevention, which is what I'm on about. Although the studies show that fenugreek and lots of other things can help reverse diabetes, and yes, it can be reversed, this was about prevention. And it was a 3-year study where they had 140 pre-diabetics. So they hadn't been classified as full-blown diabetics, but they're in this scale. And they randomly grabbed them out, and they got 66 people in the fenugreek and whatever, 74 in the other group who were the controls. And the age group was 30 to 70 years of age, and they gave them 5 grams of fenugreek twice a day. So 10 grams of fenugreek. Their fasting blood glucose went down, their post-meal glucose went down, increased blood insulin, which is exactly what I just mentioned in the big meta-analysis showing, but this is a study, remember, it was 3 years. Now, why is this so important? Is because very few studies are done over years. They're usually done in terms of 6, 10, 12 weeks is a relatively, 18 weeks is a long study. And this is a human trial. So it increased blood insulin, it decreased the LDL cholesterol, but the real crux of this was that the controls, those who didn't have fenugreek, were 4.2 times more likely to develop diabetes than those who took fenugreek. So just by something, the only thing that changed in the study was these people supplemented with fenugreek. And when they looked at it, 4.2 times. That's 420%. That is huge. Imagine if out there, all of a sudden, you've got to bear in mind the sheer cost of diabetes. Bear in mind, if all of a sudden we could say, okay, if you're pre-diabetic, in fact, before pre-diabetes, pre-diabetes, because these are just numbers made up by the medical system and the drug companies. So even beforehand, because fenugreek has so many other benefits, even beforehand, we started giving fenugreek at lower doses. It doesn't have to be. See, the dosage really depends on how fast you want the response to occur. And so if you're taking fenugreek and you don't have diabetes because you want it for other benefits, it's going to help prevent diabetes right from the start, even at lower doses. The studies overwhelmingly show the benefits of fenugreek for diabetes type 2. But some of them also now show a benefit in gestational diabetes, which is the diabetes occurs during pregnancy. And of course, the question is why? And the researchers have gone back to the molecular level, and they've done something called molecular docking, and they've actually found out that there are 19 active ingredients in fenugreek that work with reversing diabetes type 2, that benefit people with diabetes type 2, 19 active ingredients. Now, of those active ingredients, the 3 major ones, diacetyl, luteolin, and quercetin. Luteolin you find in celery, quercetin, onions, apples. These are found in lots and lots of herbal remedies and treatments and herbs and spices and so on like that. But this one is the one that's more unique. And this one is the one that the pharmaceutical companies are interested in patenting so that they can manufacture it in small quantities and sell it for a high price, but you get it in fenugreek. Now, of course, as a result of these 3 alone, there are 71 key diabetic-related targets. It's not targeting one area like just low. 71. The molecular docking has shown that 71 targets, key targets for helping with diabetes type 2. That's pretty amazing when you think about the sheer number. So as a result, that leads to even more benefits for diabetes type 2. Not just lowering blood sugar, but I reviewed over 60 or 70 studies, and it showed that it was phenomenal in helping manage all of the diabetic complications that I could come up with. It didn't matter which one. So first of all, we've highlighted that it lowers your triglycerides, it lowers your LDL, it lowers your blood pressure, it lowers your risk of cardiovascular disease. It has a whole raft of cardiovascular benefits out there. It's also been shown to benefit retinopathy, which is to do with the eyes, and cataract with the eyes, neuropathy. It's neuroprotective against Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, and other conditions that often come as a side of long-term diabetes type 2. It's liver and kidney protective, which are the organs that are most frequently damaged with diabetes type 2. It's cardiovascular disease protective. And Interestingly enough, it's also beneficial for the skin and wound healing, and diabetic wound healing is a major complication. The wounds don't heal because of the poor blood supply and neuropathy and a whole raft of other things, and this reverses all of those, including the wound healing. Wow! Almost as if Fenugreek can be used for diabetes type 2 across the board. So then we look at its bigger properties and how do we actually use it? Well, when you look at its general properties, it's 25% protein, so it's extremely rich. It's a legume. It's the equivalent of a bean, so to speak. It's a little hard bean. And it's 25% protein, 25 to 30% fiber, soluble fiber, which is really good, which means, in other words, it mixes up a lot better than the gluggy type fibers that you get in the shopping centre called psyllium husk. And generally, it's better for your gut. Don't worry, I've got a whole video coming on fenugreek and the benefits for gut health. And then it's rich in B vitamins and rich in iron. So it's a win-win situation. It's got lots of these ingredients. So as a result, it's been used in cooking and medicine for thousands of years. And it's normally used as a powder. As a supplement, it's normally used as a powder, 5 to 10 grams per day. So you can have 2 sets of 5 or 2 sets of 10 even. It doesn't matter. It's extremely safe. But where it's been used in cooking and in other ways is in flour, where it's 10% fenugreek. And they've found that when it's mixed with the normal whole grain flour, it lowers the GI from 82 to 51. The GI is the glycemic index. That's the peak it will give you in your blood to do with the blood sugar peak. And so 82 to 51, which is phenomenal, great. 63 in buns and 63 to 43 in flatbread. That was one of the studies that they showed. But also, remember, it's increasing the fiber content, which has many implications, and the protein content. And what we want to do for general gut health and health in general is increase that fiber, increase that protein content in there. In other studies, it lowered the blood glucose from 227 millimolar to 138, almost 50% reduction, so about a 45% reduction in that. Fantastic again, and that was as a result of being in the flour. So very, very beneficial. Now, how else can we use it? You can use it as a tea, preferably soaked and ground up, so you get more out of it. A spice, commonly used for thousands of years as a spice, flavoring all of your curries and chutneys, and your dals, a lot of your Indian food and cooking, and some of the Chinese food I'm aware of, you use fenugreek. And more recently, research has shown that it can be very effective in sprouting. In fact, sprouting tends to increase some of the other active ingredients, one in particular called trigonelline, by 33%, and some of the other ingredients by about the same amount, just by sprouting for 3 to 4 days. To do that, you simply put it in a little bit of water, put a little bit with a bowl or a dish, put some water in, put a little bit of paper towel on the top of it, leave it there and just sprinkle a little bit of water on to keep it moist for a couple of days, and you'll see it all sprouting. And you can put that in your smoothie. You can use it any way you want, cook it in your food, just to get some more fenugreek, because the overall research shows that fenugreek has so many other benefits, which is why I'm now doing another set of videos, one called Fenugreek for Men, and that's going to be focusing on testosterone and the balancing of the hormones. Unlike what other just taking a testosterone supplement does, it puts it out of balance. This helps balance the testosterone. And estrogen for women, yes. So I'll have videos on those, one on gut health, and also doing one on anti-aging and fenugreek. So imagine all of these properties and more, and it costs about $10 for a year's supply, maybe $20. Put this in perspective. Now, if you like this information, make sure you subscribe below and share this with all of your friends.